second Inside Government program tonight for the fall 21-22 semester here at Hugh Community College, and broadcast on Spectrum, Verizon, Fios, the Auburn Regional Media Access, better known as ARMA, as well as Win 89.1, the college's radio station. I'm your host, Guy Cosentino. On Thursday, Cuyahoga County Legislative Chairwoman Aileen McNabb Coleman presented a draft 2022 budget to the legislature that they will consider and are considering right now over the next 45 days. The $160.6 million spending plan keeps property tax rates flat, which everyone is excited about, and expects a greater increase in sales tax growth that seems to be coming in higher than in this current projected year. We have the chairwoman in the studio today to talk about her proposed budget, COVID, and matters before the legislature, and possibly attempts to hire a new manager, redistrict, a whole lot of other things that are going up there. And this all comes at a time where the legislature and her position may change because of last week's election. As we tape this at about 4 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, the 9th, absentee ballots are being counted, but when we did our first forum this fall, we said that of the 15-member legislature, there were 6 Democrats, 5 Republicans, 1 conservative, and 3 non-affiliated members. As we said, half the legislature is up for re-election this year, or election this year, with 4 incumbents not running for election, and that could change control of the legislature come January, depending on the outcome of absentee balloting this week. And as it looks right now, it looks as if, and I'll have her check my math, but it looks like Democrats have picked up at least 1 seat in the city, but lost 2 in the county, with 1 non-affiliated member changing to the GOP, which may mean come January, 7 Republicans, 5 Democrats, 1 conservative, and 2 non-affiliated, if that gets me to 15. We're going to have a math test at the end of this, but what will likely happen is one of those unaffiliated may caucus with the GOP, which under weighted voting might give them control of the legislature.
That's very good.
I had to write that 3 times because I kept coming up with 16 and I couldn't figure out why. Welcome back.
Thank you, Guy, and thank you to Cuyahoga Community College for all of your work today and hosting this.
Thanks for being here. So before we get into government and that, you have been very public about this, but how are you feeling? You had a little bit of a go around about a month ago. So what's going on?
So I was. My son was very sick, and we were continually having him tested and checked out at the doctors. And then I was having some symptoms. I did a at-home test, and I was positive. And my son had been negative.
COVID. We're talking about
COVID.
Okay.
I had a positive COVID test, and I lost my taste and smell, in addition to other issues that was other symptoms. And so I spent a few days in bed recovering.
Do you have your taste and smell back?
I do not.
You do not?
I have a bit, but not all the way.
But you were very public about this in this sense, which I think is great and honorable for you, because people need to know that you were vaccinated before.
Yes.
So you have also been very public. You said that this could have been worse.
Absolutely. I was, I have underlying medical condition. I waited until I could see my doctors in person and have discussions about the pros and cons of getting vaccinated. So I wasn't vaccine hesitant. I just wanted to be sure I dotted my I's and crossed my T's about, how this would affect me. And, I felt very satisfied after having those appointments, and of course COVID, and when could I get in to see the specialist that I see. So then I finally was vaccinated at the beginning of August, and I was thrilled. The same time my son was also, who's eligible, was vaccinated at the same time. And so I do honestly believe the vaccine saved me from having to have further interventions through hospital care. I know I was in bed a few days, I had terrible symptoms, and then I turned the corner and I started to improve. And I do credit the vaccine for that.
So you've been very public about this. Why?
Well, I think it's important that folks who, I think we can't assume everyone is vaccine hesitant or anti-vax. There are many reasons why folks are concerned, and they really want to do their homework. So I do believe we need to have a little patience and education. And I went through that. I felt that way. I really wanted to know, am I going to put something in my body that's going to worsen my condition? Is the medication that I take to address my medical condition somehow going to interfere with the vaccine? There was a lot. I just had a lot of questions, and I really wanted to share with everyone in the community that I understand that you may have questions. It's okay to do your homework. At the end of the day, I did want to share, though, that I had done that, and it worked out in my favor at the end of the day. So I you do feel like you're taking a risk, but I felt like that really paid it.
But
the benefits.
Kathleen Cuddy was here last week, and we still have a below the state average. This is before the 5 to 12 categorization.
Yes.
We're at about 53%, which sounds high, but that really means that 47% are not.
That's right. Right.
Why is that?
I
We're
don't
below
know.
the state. We're below the state by, I want to say, almost 12 points,
Right.
if I remember correctly.
Yes. Yeah. I can't answer that. It is the reason that I really sought doctor's advice. I really thought that if our community had responded so quickly to get vaccinated, I could take the time to do my homework. And then I realized I was out of time. I needed to get the vaccine and go after this myself. And I couldn't rely on the community to build their immunity. So I don't know why people are hesitant. I think there's a lot of misinformation. I don't know why folks continue to spread that misinformation. I feel as though the medical community has come out and said that even though you have underlying conditions, you should really get it. So I don't really know why.
Is there more that the legislature and the county can do to encourage this?
We did talk a lot about different initiatives to get folks in. And at the end of the day, from where we're looking across the state, it doesn't appear that they are going to put folks over the edge in order to get it. The different incentive programs.
Gift cards.
Yeah, a shot of a beer or a ice cream cone or gift cards or, our Board of Health at the county, too, is also behind that saying that we weren't sure that was going to help. So what is going to help? Education will help. And until folks around you get sick and go through an experience like I went through,
so has that changed the way when you came back to the office, you say, well, okay, I've gone through this. The following things are going to change. Did you come back to the 6th floor and say, with things that you had the authority to do?
Right. I did not.
You're not king or queen. You have to do.
Right.
There are some things that you have control over. There's some things you don't have.
Absolutely. So I have spoken to a number of people. I do know that my experience did influence a few people to go and get it. Folks who had severe anaphylaxis issues with other vaccines. And Upstate has a program to do, vaccinations a little bit at a time over a series of hours. And I know some folks were pushed in that direction. And so, if one person can make the consideration from my experience, that's why I shared it.
Does the county health department have enough resources right now when it comes to, because I know they're doing tracing, they're trying to get people immunized, there's a whole testing issue, which I am not going to cover with you, because we covered that last week with Kathleen Cuddy. There is, by the way, we got to prepare for flu season, make sure that people get, flu vaccines and all that. Have enough resources been given to county public health to do that all is being asked of them now?
Our county health department was not built for this. This is an issue that has been ongoing, and we have been able to put Band-Aids on the problems as they have come to the surface. But when they come to the surface, it's almost too late. These people are burnt out, and we continually go back to the legislature and say we need more help. We have come up with some mechanisms to get folks in a hurry. There's also a shortage of nurses. There's also, we're up against, a workforce. The
national trends as well.
With the workforce. Yeah, so it's not, it's not been easy. About a year ago, I called the governor's office and said the pandemic has outgrown us here. And then we needed help then with some
And
surge
what was
capacity.
the response?
We had a very good response, and we were able to set up community testing, and that was the testing we set up at Emerson Park, and they were able to send surge teams and a lot of support in that way. So we are keeping our eye on things. We don't want to be in that position again, and I know Kathleen and her team have worked very hard to try to keep everyone
So maybe
steady.
the last COVID question here. So we had all but one of the candidates here in the studio.
Okay.
I think of all the candidates, so we had 18 candidates, if I remember correctly, 17 showed up. I think only one was not vaccinated.
Okay.
And they were very clear about that because we have protocols here, as you know. We are a county institution. We do follow those directions. Do you think all the members of the legislature are vaccinated?
I do not know exactly who is and who isn't.
Okay, so they're not being asked. They're not volunteering. I know some are volunteering that.
Right. No,
Some
I
in
don't
the studio
know.
volunteer
For folks that come to the meetings in person, I don't know exactly who is and who isn't. I assume folks that are coming in person are, but I have not seen their records, and I have not asked to see their records.
So you released. So let's shift. The reason we have you here today is to talk about your budget. You're keeping taxes flat, correct?
That's right.
So why do this?
It has been a strange couple of years, and we're in a position where our sales tax has grown to a our sales tax is far exceeded our expectation. It did last year, and it continues to this year. We still are budgeting conservatively for next year, but certainly the sales tax performance is huge. To me, that's a direct sort of permission in order to get to a zero tax increase. And I feel that while zero tax increase is not sustainable, I think that under the weight of the pandemic and the abnormal sales tax growth, we're able to take this moment in time to do this.
Could you explain why it's not sustainable? Because some people will say, well, if you did it this year, and you're getting all this federal money, and you got all this fund balance, and you got all this sales tax, the reverse is, why don't you give me a tax cut?
Right.
So why is zero? So forget the tax cut, because that's usually not on the table.
Right.
Why, from a county leadership point of view, is zero not sustainable over a several-year period?
We have service delivery that's ongoing. We have responsibilities for mandated and non-mandated services. The cost of insurance alone goes up a lot every year. We have a lot of things that are rising costs every year that we have to figure out a way to protect.
People should see this as a one-off.
Yes.
At this particular time.
This would not be sustainable.
You also have a healthy fund balance.
That's right.
And you're still you'll be using what, about 2.1 million of your fund balance?
That's true, but 800,000 of that is for capital improvements to 2 new roofs on
Where
buildings.
are those roofs going?
At the jail and at the Hardenberg building, which is the building that houses the DA and the health department.
Health department. So at the end of the year, assuming your Lynn Marinelli, your budget director's estimates are on track, and nobody would doubt those, is that you're going to have a $22 million fund balance at the end of this year anyway.
Right.
And so that's why you can dip in part. And you don't always, if I remember the history of the county, even though you've used fund balances, sometimes you don't use it all at a given year.
That's
for a
true.
variety of reasons.
That's right, yes.
So can we go back to sales tax for a second?
Sure.
So your current sales tax is about $25.5 million, if I read that correctly. That is below what you will expect is you're going to use about 2.3, but that's well below the 27 million that she estimates you're going to take in.
Right.
Is that because there's been pent up, none of us, other than Amazon, and if I get another Amazon box on my front porch, I think the postman's going to kill me. Is it because now we have pent up and we can go out to dinner, we can go to Bass Pro, we can go do some fun stuff, we can go to the movies? Is it pent up? Is that why our sales tax up?
I am not an expert in this. However, I do know this community has invested in their homes. They've invested in, appliances and sort of some cars, although that's a tight market right now. But yeah, I do believe there's a lot of pent up. Folks are just ready to get out there and ready to live life again. So they're maybe not taking, they're not as hesitant as maybe they would be, on a regular year when, with your sort of entertainment expenses. So
does the county have a gas tax? So I know the city has one. So as fuel prices have gone up, that may be driving part of the city numbers.
Right.
Is that the case with the county?
I believe so. I don't have the, I will tell you though, as when I first started driving, my father would say, you never get gas outside of the county. So, or even outside the city. So yeah,
because you want the revenues at City
Hall.
Yes,
keep it here. Yeah.
Your dad was a member of City Council for several years. So is there anything, you mentioned the two roofs, and we'll talk about extra spending, but is there anything significant in this budget that was not in a previous budget?
I would say not. I would say that
because you're adding some, but you're adding. So this is outside the staff. So let's talk about staff. You are going to add some staff.
That's right. Yes.
One of them is in the health department.
Right.
So you're adding some staff.
Yeah.
You're expanding some hours of some operations. Where is that being done?
I'm not sure where.
I thought I had read that there were going to be hours expanded for. Relying on my citizen story yesterday, but you are expanding some staff. You're also increasing funding for some outside agencies, correct?
Yes, that's true.
So CETA, the Cayuga Economic Development Agency, is going to see an increase?
An increase, yes, for about $25,000 from where they were at a couple years ago. So that brings them up to, I believe, $375. As a base. We typically were funding them at $350. Last year was $300. So, that's an organization, that's our economic development. That's a small percentage of the entire budget of the county. And it's a good way it's a great investment for us. And CETA is going through some changes. So we want to make sure that they
leadership changes.
Yeah.
Is the county involved in that leadership search?
Yes, we are.
So where are you on that search?
We're still in a very fundamental stage in discussing what we would like in a candidate.
Okay.
So.
You're also giving some additional money to Cornell Cooperative Extension.
That's right.
And also the Soil and Water Conservation District.
That's right.
And so I thought I read it somewhere. So some Parks Department hours and emergency management offices, district attorney are getting extra hours though?
Oh, we're changing from a part-time to a full-time? Is that what they're referencing? Okay, I didn't know if you meant hours of operation. I'm not going to say whether or not they're going to have work more hours.
Okay, so you're doing some of that.
We're doing the hours there, because in the DA's office, for instance, we have an investigator that's continuously over the years at a part-time status was working really full-time, so we're formalizing this.
So you mentioned the DA's office. So now you've got an elected DA. He is going to take over as John Buderman won last week, and he will become the new surrogate judge, replacing Mark Fandrick.
Yeah.
What's the process for naming a new DA?
The governor would be naming the new DA. I would hope upon recommendation from the DA and from other entities. So I have not heard from the governor's office.
Do you see that being done after January 1st or prior to January 1st?
I don't know what the timeline is. No one has reached out.
Because there is going to be likely, we'll get to this in a minute, but I want to finish up on the budget. There might be a significant change on January 1st.
Yes, right.
So let's talk about your budget process now.
Okay.
So you released on Thursday. You had Ways and Means, you said before we started last night. They're doing another markup in the next 10 days?
Yes. We have 2 more Ways and Means meetings in the next 10 days.
Okay. And then what?
And then on November 18th, legislators will come with their recommendations in the form of a resolution to, if they would like to, let's say, add a position, they have to decide where the money's going to come from, have those budget lines ready, and then enter them into the record.
Are you hearing
for
any
a vote.
Recommendations as of yet?
Not yet. No. Last night we didn't really talk about specific recommendations.
You're over the hump of the election. Do you? For the most part, obviously, absentee ballots being counted now.
Yeah.
Do you think this is a especially because there is no tax increase, property tax increase. It'll be smooth sailing to adopt the budget in early December.
That's my hope. We didn't have a very controversial budget last year. It went very well. It was probably one of the more smooth budget processes we've seen in the county in a long time. So I'm excited to present another budget, and I'm hoping that it can go through without too much. So
one of the changes that's clearly we led at the top of the show was this issue that you have a likely change in the legislature of your makeup. So as we're taping this on the 9th, they are counting absentee ballots. It does not look at this stage like there's been many changes in that. It looks like Democrats have picked up 1 in the city, but lost 2 in the county. Non-affiliated is becoming a Republican. But what's more importantly, when it comes to weighted voting, whether it's 7 seats or 8 seats of the 15, Republicans are likely going to have control of the legislature.
That is the way it looks.
Okay.
Yes.
That could change with absentee balloting, but do you expect it to?
From what I understand, I do not expect that.
Does that mean that you would expect? Jeremy Boyer was in the studio or on the phone asking all the candidates. He had said that you were interested in seeking another term. If the Republicans don't come up with someone, and it's not clear right now that they will, would you want to continue on?
Absolutely, I would want to continue. I left my office just a few moments ago, and I have a whiteboard with about 28 projects ongoing and initiatives forthcoming. So certainly there's a lot of things to see through, and specifically also the COVID pandemic. I would like to, get to a place where that is not headlines.
So have you talked to anybody since Election Day about continuing on? Members of the legislature, whether they're current and staying or coming on board?
Yeah, I have not spoken to the newly electeds about my desire to remain as chair. I have spoken with sitting ledge about this.
And what type of response are you getting?
Nothing definitive.
Well,
so there's a lot to consider.
And so the bigger question is, will the Republicans come up with somebody?
Right.
So one of the things that you were, when you had a 6-5-1-3, if I'm doing my math correctly now.
Right.
Republicans didn't come up with somebody last year.
Right.
And so they need to have somebody who will come in and be willing to do this. Am I correct?
That's right.
So a more basic question, whether it's you or your family bloodlines, have been in politics a long time.
Right.
What happened to Democrats in the county?
That's a good question.
I get paid just for asking that one.
It's a very good question. I don't know. I know that.
Were you surprised?
Our candidate, I was.
Okay.
I actually was surprised. Our candidates worked very hard. So I don't know exactly why this turned out that way. I don't know if it's the national administration that had something to do with it. I don't know if it's COVID. I did hear at one point, a vote for a Democrat is a vote for COVID shutdowns. So I don't know what people are associating with perhaps Democrats, but
you also had not a lot of incumbents running this year.
We had a low turnout, correct.
So but the 2 losses in the county.
Right.
So you didn't have anybody, an incumbent in District 1. You did with Mr. Vitale, who lost, Mr. Batman, who lost. You can't consider Mark Strong in Moravia a seat there, and David Gould ran unopposed.
Mm-hmm.
So so was it anti-democratic, or was it anti-democratic party, or anti-incumbent?
Right. Yeah,
with the exception of Elaine Daly, and it's going to absentee, but she looks like she's the winner.
True.
There, it looks like throw everybody out except for city council.
Right. Yeah. And I can't explain. I don't have a very good, clear explanation for that.
But you've been thinking about it for the last...
I've been thinking about it an awful lot.
Okay. So let me talk about 2 other quick topics with you. One is changes in the county treasurer.
Yes.
So the legislature made changes about a month ago of how the treasurer office operates and reports. So quickly tell us what is being done.
Sure. About a year ago, when we found out that Jim Orman, our current treasurer, wasn't seeking re-election.
And that's a full-time elected countywide position.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And so we were discussing about some of the initiatives that we had on the docket when I first became chair. In 2018, we had a CGI report to talk about
Center for Governmental Research out of Rochester.
That's
so
right.
They're a think tank.
Thank you. And to talk to us about our form of government and about all of our governmental operations. And one of the recommendations in that report was to centralize finance. And so setting up a separate finance department was something that we have been talking about for years. And this was a great opportunity to do this
So with Jim Orman not seeking re-election, this
right.
is
This is a great opportunity. And it is important, too, because Jim has done a tremendous job with his department. It's a model county department. And we've got some really great people working that department. And to have his steady hand through the change, and some of these folks have been in that department for years. We've been very lucky that they're in the middle of that right now, and all this sort of influx and separating out the finance department from tax collection. And that's all happening.
So what will the
now.
treasurer now do? The
treasurer will still maintain all of the abilities that are outlined in state law.
So real property taxes.
They are still the chief fiscal officer of the county and doing everything that is outlined in law.
Now, is that a part-time job now?
No, it's still a full-time elected position.
Come January 1st. David Dempsey is going to be the new treasurer.
That's right.
So it's still a full-time job.
It's still a full-time job. All of the elected positions are considered full-time.
So no change in compensation or anything on that?
Not at this time.
We won't get to redistricting because that may be for the next legislature. But it's one thing that is out there. It's been 29 months since Justin Woods left as the county administrator in June 2019. Where is the county on hiring a replacement or redesigning the position?
So we are currently operating under administrative form of government. Mr. Woods had left in 2019. Since then, we have been operating without an administrator. I've been serving as an administrator as well as chair of the ledge and taking over all those duties, including being the budget officer for the budget. And we had a year to investigate a charter form of government, which would also enable us to have an elected executive, which seems to be the flavor of the body. No work has been done on that all year.
So why not? Is it because there's no consensus, there's no work product that's been worked on, or is it just being punted?
I don't know. I have been talking about this. It's something that we've spoken in word, and no action has been behind it. I did assign a couple legislators to make that their main focus. That has not happened.
So they haven't presented anything.
They have not.
Many of the forms here, it does sound like the flavor is a county executive, and that would still have to go through a legislative process, have to go before the public. But do you even think there's majority support for that in the legislature? I don't mean in the public, but
Sure.
in the legislature itself.
I do believe so. I think that we've seen that model elsewhere, and I think they like it. I think some of the fundamental flaws of the administrator is the feeling of a lack of control on behalf of the legislature. And with an elected executive, we're going to have even less control over an elected executive. So I guess the belief is if the elected executive is doing something that is not productive for the county, the voters will take them out. So and that's I'm comfortable with that. Clearly, we cannot continue with administrators.
So you don't buy the argument that in 74,000, 79,000 people, you can't find somebody for that elected position?
No, of course we could, yes.
And do you see this as something that comes before voters in the fall of 2022?
I hope. That is what I'm hoping. And so we're going to be pushing that.
And so that if
soon.
that passed, then you wouldn't have an executive run until 2023.
That's right.
So the earliest would be 2024.
That's right. Okay. So what happens in the meantime?
What does happen?
That is exactly my concern. So Currently, they pay me as the chair and acting administrator a salary of $60,000. We have an operations officer that was recently put back on the floor and passed. So we're looking to search for that position. I just recently got an assistant. So we're starting to staff up.
Who's very responsive, by the way, I should say that.
We're starting to staff up. However, we have to understand, and as you reference, $160 million budget, 31 direct reports, over 750 employees. It's a huge organization. We need to be responsible and can make these considerations going forward, and we need to make some changes.
Our guest has been Aileen McNabb Coleman. We're glad you're feeling better.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you for coming on. We hope you'll be a guest in the future here to give us county updates from time to time, and wish you happy holidays.
Yes, thank you. Same to you.
We will be back on Thursday with 2 back-to-back Inside Government shows. We're finishing off our fall 2021 semester here on Veterans Day with New York State Senator John Mannion and New York State Assemblyman John Lamatis. They will both be here to give us updates about what has gone on with the legislature so far and talk about what we should expect from them and the legislature in the Senate and the Assembly in January. Before we go, though, we would like to let you know that if you have questions for either of those two gentlemen, you can send them to us, or if you have ideas for future guests on Inside Government or Beyond the Front Page when we return in the spring, you can send your questions and thoughts to cozguytho@aol.com. I'm Guy Cosentino for QU Community College. We want to thank you for watching. We hope you have a good night. Have a great tomorrow. We will see you back here in the studio on Thursday for our final set of shows. We hope you be safe and be well, mask up, and get vaccinated.